Hi everyone. Today we are going to talk about data governance and generative AI. We'd like to explore how generative AI terms that we often hear in today's world could be used in the data governance domain. Before we start on detail, we'll talk a bit on data governance. In a layman term, data governance is the procedure or a standard practice to identify the origin of the data that flow across our system and how do we ensure the origin of the data and its source of truth and its source of origin. And throughout the data lifecycle we are able to track the data, and if there is any drift in the data or if there is any imputation or any data correction or data quality comes into the picture, all that would be a part of data governance. Holistically, data governance talk about data lineage, data health, data lifecycle, everything that ascertain the authenticity of the data. So we'll start with the terms that we often hear in the AI domain today. We'll start with large language models. So large language models we can visualize like any machine that is being pre-trained on lot of data as good as one can assume considering a Wikipedia data for illustration. However, LLM models are of different types and that could be identified based on the number of parameters they are being trained on. The more the parameters they are trained on, the better the expectation we have that it will respond as we are expecting the response to be based on our questions. Taking the few example of LLM, we have OpenAI, Gemini, and Anthropic. Having said that, all LLM model are not up to mark on every aspect. It depends on our use case. Considering how we use which LLM model in the data pipeline. Considering we have data pipeline wherein we get data from the multiple source, then we do the data quality check. Maybe we do the imputation for the missing values, the metadata, or we do the classification. We do the routing. What type of data that we are getting? How do we classify? And going further, we might do the deduplication. We remove the redundant data, and eventually we need to procure eventually at the terminal the relevant data. All the stages coming into the data pipeline. So we'll see where all which LLM model could be used. So OpenAI is best in the class of reasoning. Whatever anticipation we have for the any query, this LLM will give us the response with the reasoning. So whenever data is classified, it can classify the personal identification information like the email or the phone number and the financial identifiers very well in the database, so that we won't take chance on the any false classification for the data. Now, if we go with the Gemini is good at multimodal. Multimodal means irrespective of the type of data we feed to the LLM, be it text, image, or the code, we'll get the response as good in either of all the cases. This could be used in the case of metadata enrichment, considering we get the data from the legacy system, which is being in live in production for say many decades. We don't know over the period of time there might be some data when it was ingested into the system might have missed some data at that point of time, whatever it was assumed it, and maybe that column description changed with the time, and we have to do the anticipation for some of the missing data. So therein, the semantic tags means classifying the missing data based on its what closely it appears to be. We can classify that. So we enrich the metadata. This is semantic search we'll talk about in the forthcoming slides. Entropy is another one. Entropy is another LLM wherein which gives less hallucination. We can map it like it might have been trained. It might have been trained so well that it's able to identify the context of the question being asked, and it gives you a very accurate answer to your question, your query, when compared to OpenAI or Gemini. Its use case in a data pipeline could be for ethical governance, policy enforcement with explainability. What does that mean? That means since hallucination is less, means we are expecting much proper answer to a question within that context. So we can easily identify if there is any data set that is violating the governance rule, what is the reason behind that? We'll get a very precise explanation for any data not following the governance rule. That is one of the major tasks for any governance, data governance, where we expect our data to avoid all the rule defined by the governance policies. Let's talk about tokenization. Tokenization is also a buzzword in the market in LLM. Tokenization, we can assume whenever a data is being fed to any model, it break the query, maybe in words, maybe in characters, or maybe into bytes. As we see, we have different classification of token, wherein we have one word equal to one token, we have multiple words, multiple character combined to be classified as another token based on its frequency, that we talk about server tokenization. So it depends on the different model how it take one token or a particular token definition to be. But for a end user, we can assume token, the more the token, it means more is the capability of a model to interpret what a user intending to ask, or whatever is the query, whatever the prompt is being given to LLM, how precisely it can do the permutation across the different words in the query. So we can create multiple tokens. So we can get the better interpretation of the question. This is something that we'll be talking about in the next slides when we talk about the algorithm behind the uh, pre-trained models, the foundation model that's using the transformer that we'll be talking in the next slide. Now we talk about the vectorization. So vectorization is the process of converting text into numerical vectors so that neural network can process them. Considering a traditional case wherein we have a database, we make an entry is saved into uh, the database. Now in the using DB2 client or any database client, we can see the data in the table as interpreted by making the select query, for instance. However, it's saving behind the scene in a table space. It's using B-tree architecture. So herein, in case of vectorization, we are saving the whole data itself. Data could be word, token, sentence, or document itself into the underlying database that is supporting the vector, for, for which we use the term vector database. So how it's stored? It stored the documents in a n-dimensional space with the representation of a vector, or you can say an array of numbers, where the numbers are something that we interpret based on the attributes of the document or the text that we are saving. It turns out to be a particular vector space in the n-dimensional space that is defined as vectorization. This is something that comes more into picture when we'll be talking about the RAG, retrieval augment generation. However, we need to see how in data governance this will help. In data governance, if we talk about the sensitive data that we are going to save, for considering an example, if we have to save the number, the personal identification number, like SSN or national ID, regular experiment will not help. However, that's one of the basic use case. But if you're using vectorization, we'll be able to do the very near equivalent search. Means in a vector space, consider the case of net ID here, we'll be able to identify this particular string as equivalent to near equivalent to regex. So we'll be able to capture that as well. So we are not very stringent of using the regex. However, vector will make us identify the very near value, and that will be classified again as an SSN. Secondly, could be metadata enrichment, wherein since we are using vectorization, we can talk vectorization and semantic search in uh, interchangeably here. So if you talk about metadata enrichment, we're actually generating the semantic tags. How that helps? Like if we are getting some identification related to financial identifier, like we're getting amount is being saved in terms of dollar, in pound, or cents, all those turns out to be financial identifier, or maybe a customer is affluent customer, privileged customer. then he is something must be having a criteria to have like $20,000 above in the account will be considered as affluent. So if a user coming with that bracket, we can define a set of rule using that it can classify as a financial identifier. Also, in case of risk and compliance monitoring, this can be used. Now we talk about attention. Attention is the core of the is the basic like that has made a drastic change in the market of LLM because it has overcome the challenge we had with recurring neural network RNN. Because here it is no more confined to identify the words based on the sequence, but it can generate the it can interpret the value based on by generating the tokens in parallel from the sentence itself. So the type of attention is basically we have self attention and scaled out product attention. To talk about the primary is the core of transformers, which is self attention. What happens here in each token will attend each other token. It's like we having the parameters like query key and value, and product of the query and key will identify what should be the next token, and it will be predicting that next token based on the other token adjacent to it. It's not based on the sequence token itself, as was the limitation with RNN, because with the paradigm of generating the token based on the sequence, it used to forget the context. The more bigger the sentences, more vague the context, and more we turned out to be with the hallucination. That was a limitation for the RNN that has been addressed with the attention algorithm. So, as we just talked about, multi-head attention is something wherein it will be using multiple heads. Means we'll be breaking token by encoding each of the token, and each of the token will be identifying a different meaning out of that the sentence itself. Like for example, if you talk about the bank of a river, so which bank it is? Is it bank related to the financial institution? No, it's related to the river. So how it identifies the relation between the two? This would be done by the multiple heads. If you talk about the transformer, as we just talked about, attention is the core of the transformer. How it used to identify the token parallelly. So transformer was that is the architecture being almost used in all the modern LLMs. So if you see what it basically do, the flow for the transformer component, it's like it will feed the raw text, it will create the tokens, and tokens will be converted to embeddings or the vectors or the we say the numerical representation for the tokens in the sentence itself using positional encoding. And most of the LLM we have are decoded in structure. I mean, they interpret the output. However, we have encoders also. Like encoders, primarily encode is something that transforms the input and interpret the input. Decoder structure that interprets the output. So decoder and encoder structure are also integral part of the transformer. Then we come to the fine tuning. Fine tuning is something where we intend to use the model a pre-trained model, but we have a constraint with the infrastructure, and we want to use that model specific to a task or domain. So we have a requirement left is like we need to train the model on the domain specific data itself. This can be done by using parameter efficient fine tuning PERFT, wherein only small weights are trained. It's cheaper, and like LoRa is one of the way to fine tune. Like the Mistral 7B model itself is a small language model that we can further tune using LoRa to give a more explanation for our interpretation. So it's you can say fine tune, giving more profound and compact answer. So it's able to grasp the context up to a better extent. Similarly, we have RLHF, one of the other way, wherein we'll be asking the question. Once we get the response, we'll be re-ranking it further. so that based on human feedback, it will fine tune and it will be used for the subsequent queries. Then we talk about RAG. A RAG is retrieval augment generation. It's something we can visualize like we augment the query or we augment the prompt given to LLM with another source we have. Or we can say the proprietary or something that we cannot be exposed, for example, to the outer world, or it's the data that's confined to the company. So we'll enrich that using the data from the proprietary data sources. As we say, RAG fetches relevant external document at the query time, and it ingests it into the LLM prompt that we have the user have posted, and it will enrich the response that LLM will give by taking the input that we get from the external document as the reference. So we have different type of RAG: basic RAG, hierarchical RAG, and RAG re-ranking. So RAG re-ranking is nothing but it's something like we are getting the semantic search user. It's something like we have a data we have converted into vector that we just talked about, converted to numerical representation, and it's saved into the n-dimensional space as a vector. Now, when the user is asking a question and user is putting a prompt, it will interpret that query itself again as a vector, and it will look for the near similar vector in the n-dimensional space. That is what we term as uh, similarity search. And once we get the data, then again it will be re-ranked. Out of all the responses, will be again giving the setting the priority order, and that is something a refinement on top of the RAG response that's called RAG plus re-ranking. This is how the architecture looks like in case if you have to use the RAG in the data governance domain. If you see here in the data governance, we have different sources, like we have a regulation related to GDPR, HIPAA, and we have internal rules, or we have another metadata catalog that we want to use. These are something that will be used as external sources that will enrich our LLM query. And this will redefine the context, and based on the embedding model that we'll be using, and using the guardrail, will enrich the response. And here we see it's we can use either of the vector store, could be Pinecone, Waveweight, or Fives, or Chroma. These are all nothing but like we can visualize like a database that have a provision to save the data in a numerical representation and dimensional space that turns out to be called as a vector. So eventually, when it gets enriched at this stage, the data is fed to RAG, to the LLM, like maybe GPT or Gemini or Cloud. It will wrap that response using a wrapper, and then we get a response. Now, this is something we see it's getting included audit and observability. This is one of the use cases in data governance, wherein we can use RAG to enrich the responses and get the proper reasoning for our data governance, so data lineage. Or if, for example, if you want to ask for the data input, data quality check across the different stages of the data pipeline, this can be used. So this is the flow of the RAG. User asks the questions. Embedding and vector search happen, means the query is given to a vector storage. It retrieves the top case similar document. Then we might do re-ranking. Then that context is got injected, means whatever was user was looking for, that got injected into the original query, and the prompt gets enriched with the exact question that is being asked to the prompt, and it will go to LLM, and LLM will, since it's already pre-trained on some of the data, plus it will get the retrieved document from the source that we have, confined proprietary source, and it will just give us the response. So vector database is, again, as we just talked about, it's something it save the data in n-dimensional space. Reason, then we have model context protocol. And what is the context engineering? Context engineering is nothing, primarily it's something like how do we make our LLM system to determine the context? And it's different from the prompt engineering. Prompt is that talks about how to write a question, how to write a query to the LLM, However, context engineering identify how a system will be able to determine the context. Will it can be using RAG, as we just talked about, to enrich the context. It can compress the context, or it can use semantic cache. Then chain of thought is one of the way of prompt engineering, wherein we give, while asking the question to the prompt to set the correct context, we can give a few example so that we train there itself like what logic it should use. For example, if you are giving how to add two apple and two banana, what should be the answer? It should turn out to be four. We can give that as an example, or we might give two, three examples. So that turns out to be like a few short example. So reasoning model that we just talked about give a reason based on the chain of thought itself. So internally, it looks for the rationale behind the answer it's giving. Now we talk about the small language model. Small language model are something that we have like LLM, but the only thing is they have a fewer parameters, not million or billion like in large language model, and also they are lightweight because they are trained on few parameters. They are tuned for specific tasks, domain, and so easily can be deployed in the enterprise environment in the local system itself. One of the use case in banking domain could be use Mr. Line 7V model for fine tune on past fraud cases. Then LLM distillation is something wherein we are taking the data from the large language model and making a small language model to behave as if it's trained on the large language model. So there is a paradigm being followed here, wherein we are not training the student model, means what we are trying to refer as a target model on the raw data, but we are mimicking the output based on the teacher model. Thank you. This is all I had to cover for today.